This program is financially supported by the fundings from the European Commission.
You are listening to the EBU Access Cast, the first official podcast from European Blind Union about assistive technology for blind and partially sighted people. And here are the hosts.
Hello and welcome to the new episode of the EBU Access Cast for this month, where we will tell you what's been happening in the world of accessibility in Europe and beyond, but still related to Europe. Welcome. My name is Paweł Masarczyk. I will be the host for this month's episode. And with me I have Mario from Luxembourg, Mario Percinic. Hello, Mario.
Hello there.
And Bart Simons from Belgium as well. He's also with us. Hello, Bart.
Hello, everyone.
So this looks like the last episode for this year and the last episode for the teens of the 21st century, but not the last one for the decade. The decade is still a year ahead of us, so we still have some episodes for you left in this decade. But the next year will be 2020, so hopefully it will be a special one also in accessibility, and that a lot of things could happen, I'm sure. And all of us, I guess.
Oh yeah.
Yes, and Christmas is also coming, so it's also some happy vibes for all of our listeners. Speaking of Christmas and presents that we might get, have you got anything new that you got recently that you can already show or speak about before Christmas?
I don't.
Well, I did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
What
actually,
is it?
I got for Christmas. I got Android smartwatch. It's called the Fossil Gen 5, and basically it's a newest edition of the smartwatches that have the new chipset on board. And eventually, what's going on now with this chipset is that the watches are much more powerful than they used to be. Which, for the accessibility things, that means that everything on the watch, once you get it running, it runs very smoothly. So the experience is really, really nice.
Okay, so you already opened your Christmas present before the Christmas Eve.
Yeah, you know, it's better to do that before, because for Christmas you eat and drink too much, and then sometimes you can mess up the things if you don't want to.
Yeah, and not everyone is Apple to give you the extended time to return something that you didn't like. So you may be quite a bit in trouble if you, especially in our case, when you need this accessibility and you need it to work right. It's good to check things out.
Yeah. And especially if you have like this month period or 14 days period or whatever is it to return the product and something goes wrong. So
yes,
it's
for sure.
the best to open and test the things right away.
Yeah.
So eventually it was good. It was good for me that I did that, because I realized that at the beginning when I wanted to start the watch, I experienced some, well, I would say interesting situations with the watch. Because the thing is that when you're looking, so this is the Android, it's a Wear OS watch, which is based on Android. And when you look at the accessibility instructions on the internet, how to start up the talkback, they say that you're supposed to hold two fingers on the screen for a few seconds and then the talkback should start. If you have a speaker built in on the watch, which eventually my watch has the built-in speaker. So I turned on the watch and I was holding two fingers, and then I got a message like, continue pressing, holding your fingers for a few seconds, and then the accessibility services will start. But nothing happened. And eventually I realized, okay, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to restart the watch. So I was able to restart the watch and do that again. But again, the same thing happened. So then I decided to call up the specialized help from Google, which we can get through Be My Eyes.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
And they supported you with a product that contains their system but is not actually coming from them. That's also really nice.
Well, guess what? They didn't.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Too bad, Google.
Well, yeah, too bad for Google. Basically, the guy who I had online told me like, these accessibility services are kind of experimental. And I was like, yeah, I know that they are experimental, but they are working. I mean, you have the products. You have the products which are working. So the only thing what I was
support,
the only thing what I was requiring, like, can you get me like some sighted assistance so we can get the watch running? And he was like, yeah, does your watch have even built-in speaker? And I was like, okay, this is not going to end up well. So eventually, I said, yeah, thank you very much, goodbye. This is not going to be helpful. So I asked a friend of mine at the end to help me with the watch. And what eventually happened was that the watch had a huge system update to download because the watch was released like a few months ago. And before you get it running, you need to have everything up to date. And so I was downloading that system updates for a few hours because the battery on the watch went dead for a few times.
Oh no.
So I had to recharge the watch and do that again. However, during this update process, the people at, I don't know whether is it somebody at the Fossil or is it done by the Wear OS, but whatever. The thing is smart enough to remember that, okay, something went wrong, and when I continue to download the system update, it will resume. So that was good thing because I didn't have to do it everything again and again and again. So once everything was set up, the watch restarted and then it started talking finally properly. Because during the setup, I could hear TalkBack announcing some of the things, like here and there, like I could hear that the system update is being done and what was the time at the point and stuff, but it was very unresponsive and basically you couldn't do much if you are blind. But once everything was finished and the watch restarted, everything started working very well, I have to say. So the thing is that once you get it going, so you need to have decided assistance for the product to get it running, but once you get it going, it's really working nicely, I have to say.
It's a little strange that your update process already starts during setup. So if that didn't happen, it wouldn't have been a problem.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing is that if it would be up to date, let's say with the software already, then probably there would not be a problems. However, I have to say that there is a certain thing regarding the accessibility. But this is also accessibility startup, let's say. But this is also known for the Android phone as well. You need to have your phone language or watch language set up to the US English, because this is the only way how you can start up the accessibility services properly, because the voices for the languages are already pre-installed in the device itself. If you are if you want to use some other languages, for example, I don't know, you want to use Dutch for Belgium, or somebody wants to use French or German or whatever, Polish, then what you need to do is you need to download the specific files for your TTS in case, for example, in this case, for Google TTS, it needs to download the language files in order to start speaking.
That's good to know for everybody who's interested.
You need to jump on Wi-Fi basically, because then it at least starts streaming first the light version of the voice from the cloud, and in the background, in the meantime, it will download the full package to use offline. So it's a bit tiresome. Not for everyone, it's straightforward. This is why a lot of users, at least here, don't decide for Android or are a bit skeptical, because you need to start in English. But once you're done with Wi-Fi, if you get to the step where Wi-Fi password is entered, you can carry on, change the language back to your own, and the voice will be downloaded.
Yeah, though I have to say, for example, when I purchased my last phone last year, I was able to start the accessibility already without any problems, because the phone's interface was already in English. So there was no problem about that. But if you don't know English, or you, for whatever reason, the phone language is set somewhere else, then the accessibility services will not start right away, because they need to download the appropriate files. So that's the thing what people have to take care about. But going back to the watch, I have to say I'm really, really happy with the device. One of the things that I have to say, I will make a short demo. We will have a short demo about the watch.
Yes, that's what I wanted to announce actually, because we could have asked you so many questions here, but actually we'll demo some of these features of the watch.
Yeah.
So we'll get to hear at the end of the show.
Right.
Yeah.
What I just wanted to say before we go on is the reason, basically the main reason why I decided to take this watch is because when you look at the availability of the devices, of the wearable devices, so let's say the smartwatches today, you can see that there are multiple choices basically, and if you don't want to have the Apple Watch, so you want to go somewhere else, then you can see that there are like the Android Wear OS watches, like the Fossil, and I know, Pavel, that you had a friend of mine who purchased something else, you have also the possibility of purchasing the products for example from Samsung, like the Samsung Galaxy Active 2, which was also released just 3 months ago. And eventually, it's a really nice device. It has also built-in screen reader and very nice accessibility functions. However, what most of the people don't know is that if you want to get some other products, for example, so you get the Samsung smartwatch, you are then forced to use their ecosystem for the apps, because this is not a Wear OS. It's the Samsung is using their Tizen operating system.
Yes, that's right. It's completely different. I think there are different apps running on it. It's not just
right. Well, but
basically,
it's a kind of fork of Android, but it's on the other hand, it's totally different. So if you purchase, for example, the Samsung watch, then you're supposed to use their app store. You cannot go to the normal Google Play Store and buy the Wear OS apps or whatever. So when I was doing a research, what should I get? I realized, like, okay, if I want to get the best performances, for me the best would be to take the Wear OS device, because you have a bunch of apps already on the Wear OS Play Store, which you can install directly on a watch. Or if you want still to expand the functionality of your watch and you don't have the apps which are running on the Wear OS, you can sideload the standard Android app from the Play Store or from your phone into the watch and then install it and use it. And this is why, like, for me, this was like a huge advantage. So that's why I decided to go with the Wear OS version. And I have to say, I really like it. Once you pair it with the Wear OS app on your phone, it's you can see all the things which are happening on the watch. And you can also see on the watch what's going on. There is a Google Assistant built in the watch, which works really nicely. And I have to say that I'm really surprised by the quality of the phone calls. As well. Yeah, you can also send and receive phone calls. Also reply on the notifications. Not by voice.
On the phone, it doesn't have a SIM slot, does it? You have to pair it with your phone, and then
you have to pair it with your phone. Then there is no SIM slot on this watch. No. But as soon as you have your phone in range, it's working just fine. I mean, you can also go on the Wi-Fi directly. So, for example, you can use your Wi-Fi network and then you don't have to have your phone in range if you don't want to.
Yeah.
So that works nicely. And overall, once you get everything running, I get like more than, now I could get like for a little bit more than 1 day from the battery, which is for this kind of devices is more than fine. There's a cool magnetic charger that goes on the bottom of your watch, and basically it sticks on your watch. Once you get it going, it's very smooth process. I really like it.
Yeah, that's great. As far as I know, also there are many, not really forks, but offsprings of the Fossil watch, which means that there is a Fossil watch inside, but it gets different branding. So if you would like to go a little fancy and get yourself a Michael Kors watch or Armani watch, that's what you're going to get inside, from what I heard. So the same accessibility, the same interface, what you can expect from what Mario is going to demonstrate. So the choice is really wide now, even if you are into fashion.
Yeah, I have to say that the price point for the watch, the people who are in the States, they're much more lucky than we are, because they have now this exact watch that I got for crazy cheap prices.
Okay.
Like the original price of the watch is about $295, but now it goes even for like 160 something. So it's really priced down. But in Europe, it's not that cheap. I got it cheaper from the Amazon UK so I saved up like 40 euros, which is not bad. But yeah, if you're in the States, you can get it even cheaper. But yeah, well, we're in Europe, so.
Yeah, we have to make do with what we have. So
Yeah.
Great that you got it anyways. As far as my gadgets, there is nothing really major. As our family, we got ourselves an Android TV box, which is to say, it's not Android TV, it's a TV box with running actual Android, like a full system. Yes, and it's a nice device. You can run all the apps you want on it, as you would do on a tablet. But it's not very comfortable to handle as a blind person because you need to use the remote control that is attached to it, and unfortunately TalkBack doesn't provide too much of choice when it comes to the keyboard commands that you can do. So it works basically like your old flip phone. As long as the developer coded the keyboard support features in the app, you can handle it. Otherwise, you're out of luck. There is no ability to simulate screen touch gestures. What you can do is you can connect a keyboard over either Bluetooth or USB and handle it like that. But, well, I think it defeats the point of having a TV box, because you would ideally sit on the couch and handle your viewing experience or listening experience from over there. And with a keyboard on a cable, this is not really practical.
Right.
Yeah, but it works. I mean, for my family, it's they haven't really gotten used to it yet, but I think they will with time. And now I'm experimenting a lot with this streaming protocols, Google Cast, DLNA, UPnP, Miracast, everything. So it's really interesting how much you can do with it and what kind of apps you can use to stream different things to different devices. And this TV is definitely what we are going to use for that. Yeah, that's I think it for the gadgets for this month. And for the year.
I think we covered more than enough.
Yes, for sure. Yes. So having said that, let's jump into the news, because we also have a lot of news for you to consume over the Christmas break and before the new year, and hopefully something to jump with into the new year. So let's go straight into the news.
And now, accessibility in the news.
So, first in the news, something that I should speak a little bit about, because it's somehow related to Poland, and even definitely Warsaw was awarded the Accessible City Award by the European Commission. And so congrats, Warsaw.
That's for the 2020, right?
Yes, that is for the 2020. And what should I say? I'm happy that a Polish city was selected. And I should be able to say more, except the thing is, I don't really live in Warsaw. I live 3 hours away from the capital, and I haven't visited for a while, but I had done some research with blind people who live there, with my friends, and what they managed to do, the city of Warsaw, I mean, is they developed a set of accessibility guidelines for built architecture, for built environment, which is implemented and it's negotiated and consulted every time there is a new architectural investment in a city. So there is new building that the city has to assess, or there is some construction work in the streets and so on. And this is being validated, and apparently this is working quite well. From what I heard, of course it's not ideal, you could complain about a lot, but compared to other cities, this is really outstanding work that the city of Warsaw is doing. There are many tactile floor paths, floor markings. They might be a bit confusing at sometimes, because they're quite a dense network of those. The underground of Warsaw has tactile maps that you can explore to find your way around stations. There is the Invisible exhibition, which is also quite popular in Europe. It's an event or a place where you can come, a sort of museum experience, where blind people guide you around and show you, as a sighted person, what it's like to be blind in a way, so you can explore different areas of life. There is an invisible kitchen, invisible office, invisible street, and you can hear the stories of the blind guides who will tell you how it's like to live in such circumstances as a blind person. And I think they're also starting a blind cafe / blind restaurant now, so thus providing work for blind people in the city. which is great. And also they organize different campaigns. I think there is this one called the ścieżka dostępu, so path to accessibility or path of accessibility, where they campaign for and make people aware of blind people in the city, so that the tactile paths in train stations are not blocked with people's luggage, because people tend to stand on those and block your way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or recently they are also campaigning for the e-scooters not to be parked on the pavements, and I think they were quite successful. Their advertisements, their campaigning banners are hung in the underground on the train stations, so they have been quite successful with that. Also, a couple of years ago, I don't know if this is still running, but when I needed to navigate in Warsaw and I needed to get somewhere where I didn't know where the place is, what I could do with one of the organizations there is I could book an assistance of a volunteer who would come to the train station, pick me up from there, and take me to the place where I needed to go. You needed, of course, to book it in advance, but it was 6 or 5 years ago when I used it last, and it worked really fine. So I hope it's still running there.
Okay.
Yeah, they also have...
That could include walking or really from door to door. Oh, nice.
Yes, actually, this person who picked me up took me by her own car, to the place where I needed to be. So that was really nice of her. You could see that she was really, really happy to do that. She came there with her daughter, and her daughter had a lot of questions to me, of course, about blindness and so on, which I didn't mind. but we get there eventually. And for me, because at that time I was just beginning to move independently around cities and stuff, it was really a lifesaver, because I had all of that stress offloaded. So that's definitely great. Also, a developer from Warsaw developed a system. It's not that prominent in Warsaw itself, but around Poland it's catching up, and maybe it will be expanded abroad at some point, I hope, called TOTU Point. TOTU means it's here, so it's like a beacon system. So the beacons are placed at different spots in the city, and if you're blind and you navigate, you can either use your smartphone app or a module attached to your cane, which triggers these beacons, and they actually will identify themselves sonically. So you can hear beep, beep, beep. Here is the street, this and that, crossing with this and that. Yes. Okay. And also the beacon will, if you use the app, it will send you some detailed textual information to your smartphone, which you can read, like the name of the place, the address, the phone number, opening hours, and so on. And there are some places in Poland, for instance, the Technical University in Wrocław. It has a lot of these beacons spread across the campus, so the blind students can navigate independently through the campus.
And why did they decide to do that just on that university? Because there are lots of blind students there, or it's just...
They have pretty active disability matters department there, disability student support, and they have actual blindness laboratory where they experiment with 3D printing and IT technology to find new ways of inclusion and accessibility. And I think they reached out to the developer to start this TOTU Point installation process there. This is mostly the Polish Blind Union that initiates the contact, and they say, we would like to have this beacons here, and then the people come and they install it. There is testing deployed, and
wow, that's cool.
Yeah, I find it also quite fascinating. There are also some in the city near where I live, so I'm also quite happy that they install them at the places where blind people go the most. So so yeah, I think this is what Warsaw is doing, probably much more as well, which I would have known if I lived there. But if you would like, you can always come and visit and check it out, because it's quite interesting what's happening there.
Oh yeah, congratulations, Warsaw.
Thanks a lot on behalf of people living in Warsaw. And yeah, let's see what's coming up next. And this time from Microsoft again, and from the Seeing AI project. Some time ago, I think you, Bart, were interviewing the CEO or the manager of the project of Seeing AI. And
right.
Takib Sheikh, yes.
Indeed. And he mentioned that he's planning, or his team is planning, to expand the language support to more and more countries. And yes, 5 new languages.
At least we have Dutch now, so...
there is also German, French, and Spanish, and I think Japanese.
Japanese, yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
Yes, and...
if we have listeners in Japan, please tell us how it works. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, also this is important because the Japanese yen, the currency of Japan, is now supported for detection. So this is also expanded, but this is for the interface. And I think for the recognition part, it's many more languages now. I think we might have spoken about it in one of the previous episodes, that you can actually choose the language for the short text now.
For text recognition, it recognized already long time, but it recognized most languages. It's only that your description, if you have a photo description, they are now localized. So for some people, was really blocking that it was only speaking English.
You're right. Mm-hmm.
But the text recognition was already working since long time, but your prompts and your interface would still be in English. So for some people, this was even more confusing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's great. I guess they are using some translator, like Bing Translator or something for this. This is not, or are the descriptions built dynamically by the AI in the given language? Somehow.
I think they are. Yeah, I think they should.
Okay, yeah, that's great. If you have any comments on how it works in your language now, we'll be happy to hear from you. I think the next news or the next two pieces of news will be especially important for our musician listeners or people who have something to do with music played on instruments and music notation, because there are these two apps, one released and one updated, which make it easier and enhance the access of blind musicians to the notation, to the music sheet. So on one hand, MuseScore, this very famous software for music notation, for composing and reading music XML and other formats, was updated, and it now includes some more accessibility features. For instance, access to the palettes, to the properties of individual notes. So more of that is read with a screen reader. On the other hand, there is the SM Music Reader, so first accessible music notation reader for Android, surprisingly. So for the first time, this kind of application is not like an exclusive for iOS, as it usually happens, but also blind people can now access music notation on the go, or for like individual training. If you practice with an instrument somewhere and you have your notes written down by your teacher or gotten somewhere off the internet, you can now go to your practice room and use your phone as the base for your notes and for...
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes, so I think it's quite important now that these new possibilities are unlocking. It's really interesting, especially on the smartphones. From what I heard, the touch screen of a mobile phone might be a bit too small to browse it comfortably, but as you can move through the notes by swiping with your finger left and right, as you do with your regular items on the screen, I think you can get through somehow, especially that as you focus a note, the note is played out to you and it's also described with all the properties.
Yeah, that's the same how it works in the MuseScore as well. So when you're using a MuseScore, which is a normal application for notes editing and reading, eventually they implemented also the accessibility features. Not only for now, it's available from, well, for what I know, it was from version 2. So now they are even expanding and adding more accessibility features, which is great. But yeah, the feature-wise and the experience-wise, it's very similar. Like the experience is very similar, like between this music reader now available for Android and the MuseScore. It's we are able to use it now. Of course, you need some training. I mean, it's not something that you would just sit down and be able to use in the next 5 minutes. So eventually, you need some training to learn the interface and get how to use it. But the most important thing is that we are able to use that once you know how to do that. That's really what's important. What I was surprised was that this Android music reader, which came out from basically the organization from Vietnam, I was really struck because there was no news that they're developing anything, and the news just came out one day. Hey, we released an app for reading the notation scores and stuff. And I was like, yeah, man, this is something I was waiting for a long time as a musician. I'm not saying that I'm using this on the daily basis, but when I need it, I can use it. And that's the most important thing. And what I can see from the both companies, so one of them is based in Vietnam and one is the developers for the MuseScore are based in the UK. Both of them are really dedicating their resources and their time to get the frequent updates out. Especially, for example, now in this Android music reader. I think that since it came out like maybe a month ago or 3 weeks ago. I'm not sure, but during that 3 weeks time, there were like 3 or 4 updates already for the app. So you can see that they're or do the bug fixing, or they're adding new features and everything. What you can see in the changelog, what I do, it's really nice thought, and yeah, it really works nice. So yeah, for people who need these kind of things, now you can get it. And the most important thing is that the apps are free.
Yeah, and that is great. And I also think
Of course, you can do the donations if you want.
Yeah. The Saomai Institute people, they are pretty much all around mailing lists for blind people who use Android. So they are really interested in gathering feedback. They respond to emails from what I can see. And they're really interested in the feedback. Also in the translation. So if you would like to contribute translation to your language, which might be valuable for the users in your country, especially because this is music notation. So it uses some quite advanced terminology in English, which not all people might be familiar with. You're welcome to submit your translation. So this is something you can do if you feel this app means a lot to you and you would like to spread the news further. So now we'll move a little bit, we'll stay a bit in the apps realm still, but a little bit into devices, and devices that didn't used to be accessible, but now they are. Something I wanted to share, a good practice example that we encountered recently here in Poland. I don't know if this is also popular in your countries, especially in the English-speaking countries. I was looking for a good translation for this kind of device, because it seems like the concept is not really as widespread. When you request a package to be delivered to you, you can either get it from a courier who will come straight to your house and you will pick it up. But then if you're not home, he has to bring it back to the post office, or leave it with your neighbor or a friend or somebody living close by, which requires a bit of trust and looking for the right person, or at the post office where you have to come within the opening hours and pick it up yourself, which is also a bit troublesome. But there are also these delivery lockers or post package delivery devices. That was my problem, where you can request your package to be dropped. You receive a password to open it, a code. You come to the machine wherever you feel like, whenever you have the time. You know where it is, and you open it and you fetch your package, and it's fine. And these are quite convenient devices. They're quite popular in Poland, at least. I think in Germany as well, because when I looked on Wikipedia, I could find the article in German as well. But the problem was, at least here, that all of them were not really accessible, because in order to enter the code to open your locker, you had to use the touchscreen keyboard.
Oh.
Yes, so that was a huge disadvantage. At a later stage, they introduced QR codes, so you could scan the QR code from the app or from the email or text message that you got from the company. You could scan it against the scanner from the device and it would open it. Still better, but not really 100% sure for blind people. So what they did now, and I'm really super happy they did it, I already tried it and it works. Whenever you get a package, apart from a text message and email, you will also get notification in their dedicated app. So what you have to do is you have to come to the machine where it is, and it will actually check if you're in the neighborhood, if you're by your GPS location quite close by the device. If it's not, it will not work. And you open the app, you find your package, you enter the details screen, and you press the open the locker button. And yes, if the app locates you that by the GPS location you are close by the machine, it will tell you, okay, if you're ready, press OK. You hear the clang of the locker that is opened. And on the screen of your phone, you also see, as you stand in front of the machine, having the touch screen in front of you, the third locker in the first row on the right is yours. Fetch your package. So, yes, this is really, really life-saving for us. Before, what you could also do was you could call the helpline of the company. The company is called InPost. And you could tell the person who would pick up the phone, could you please open my package locker? It's number this and this, the code is this and this. And this person would tell you, okay, this is the locker. But then you would have to open it. If you by accident smashed it again, because the doors are really tiny and sometimes it might happen, you close it again, you would have to ask the person again, could you please open again? And this worked, but it was a bit troublesome. Of course, you also needed to catch somebody there because it wasn't 24/7 service. And now you can do it all on your own from the app. So yeah, this is really, really great.
So this... Yeah, we have those in Luxembourg as well, but I didn't try them yet. But I will do that soon. So give you the report how the things are going over here.
Yeah, we'll be interested to hear that for sure. From what I've heard, it was, I think, announced last year, not this year, but last year on CSUN, what Amazon was planning to do, because I think this is why I couldn't find an accurate translation, because the machines exist, they're just called Amazon lockers or DHL boxes or something else. So Amazon planned to introduce these accessible machines with keypad, with a headphone jack, so you could perform all the picking up from the terminal itself. But I don't know what came out of this, if this actually reached the market, and if yes, if only in the US or also in other countries where Amazon is present. But at least that was the idea they had, so maybe we'll see the Amazon lockers as well. Yeah, and the next piece of news is also related to certain machines which are becoming more and more popular, yet more and more inaccessible as we go. But something is going to be done about this, and namely, I mean the touch-based payment terminals, which are recently somehow especially popular in taxis, but not only. In stores, you can also see them sometimes, perhaps even at some banking machines. Some ATMs are actually touch-based, I heard. And this is a huge problem.
Yeah, this is true. Some of them are even appearing here in Luxembourg, unfortunately.
Yes. Hopefully the European Accessibility Act will be forceful enough to change this as well. And something is already being done, as there are two companies which are present on the European market, and they are planning to release or have already released their new terminals, which are touch-based, but at the same time provide accessibility features. And namely, this is Valina from World Terminal Payment and Six Payment Company, World Line and Six Payment Services, and also from PAX Technology, the PAX A920. The latter, the PAX, was tested in cooperation with RNIB, and they both provide certain features which let the blind person complete the transaction independently. And there are already video demonstrations of how this is going to work. Basically, they both are going to speak. The Valina is speaking with Google TTS, and I think on the PAX it's a vocalizer, but I'm not sure.
I wasn't sure if that was a vocalizer or the Samsung TTS even, but it could be that it was a vocalizer.
Yeah, it could be. But yeah, both are speaking, and they announced the amount you're going to pay, and they're going to instruct you how you're going to use them. So you insert your headphones, and you hear the messages, and you are also given a description of the PIN pad. So the upper part of the screen is blank, it doesn't serve any function, and then below you have the keys for the digits, and to the right you have cancel, okay. And the thing is, and I'm really wondering how intuitive this is going to be, because from the recording it wasn't really clear to me. The digits are not going to be announced. This is okay, I mean safety, and nobody would like to hear their PIN code spelled out in digits. But at the same time, they're going to beep somehow, and I think the beeps are indistinguishable. So you can hear that you focused on a button, but you don't know which one it is. So unless you have really good precision with estimating the distances between the buttons, which I don't think all of the people might have, especially with some additional motoric impairments, this is going to be a bit interesting there. How you're going to enter the digits. But once you've entered the digits, and the terminal is going to tell you that you've entered the first digit, the second digit, and so on, you find the OK button, you tap it, everything is announced that you focused it, that you tapped it, and it will tell you if the transaction was completed successfully or there was some problem. So this is going to be spoken out.
Yeah, I have to say that I didn't have the time to look at this Valina video, but I looked at the PAX and I found it really confusing. Like that was exactly what you said. Like I could realize that it speaks, and then I realized that the person was inputting the digits onto the touchscreen, but all you could hear is beep beep bleep 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 bleep. And well, I mean, I consider myself as a really power user, but even for me this would be confusing. So yeah, if this is a product for the blind and it's aiming for people who have visual disabilities, I think that definitely some more explanation is needed even on that video material, because this is really like it. To me, it looks like, the scientific video done from the lab thing.
Yes.
Don't you think that there is any tactile marking on the keypad area? Because that could be helpful if you have tactile lines between the buttons, so that you see the keypad and.
Yeah, but they didn't mention anything on when I looked at the product descriptions. There was nothing mentioned like that. They were just saying that it's a touchscreen which can be used with the spoken feedback, and of course the most important thing is that it's waterproof and stuff,
and ecological.
And it's ecological, but no additional information for like further orientation on the device, etc. So
and also in the PAX video you are actually given a description of the pin pad, which would make me think that there is actually nothing tactile in it, because the message you get doesn't really indicate to anything like that. The Valina works pretty much the same. You get some beeps when you focus on the digits, but it's not really clear. What the videos are actually missing is audio description, which would be really crucial in this situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but well, let's see what happens when they finally roll out. Meanwhile, before these terminals arrive or before they are perfect enough to be used independently with no problems by everyone, there is a semi-solution. Both Apple Pay and now Google Pay is also going to introduce that actually allow you to confirm any transaction by your touch sensor, by your fingerprint sensor, and it means you don't have to enter the PIN. You do the authorization on your end on the smartphone
or on the watch as well. For example,
yes.
I have the Google Pay on the watch, and so it can work. Unfortunately, Google Pay is not available in Luxembourg yet. I don't know how it's for Poland.
It's quite widespread. Most of the banks offer both Apple and Google Pay.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're fine with that. That's a great thing. I also have seen Apple Pay being introduced in Luxembourg when I was still there.
Yeah. Apple Pay is being introduced. Google Pay didn't come here yet. But what we do have, I don't know if you used it while you were in Luxembourg for a short time. There is a really cool app. It's called DigiCash.
I think this is something that works in the Benelux area. It's like
right. Yeah, it's
you have to have an account in one of the banks that are
right.
supported.
You need to have You need to have the account in the banks, and once you get the account running and everything, you can also install this DigiCash app, and which is mostly accessible. It works quite nicely, and what you can do is you can pay the bills, whatever you need to pay, almost everywhere here in Luxembourg. So for example, I go to the dentist, I'm finished, I just pay with my DigiCash, scan the QR code on the paper, and I'm done. Or for example, if I go to canteen, which I use at work to eat, and we have like these cards with the certain amounts of money that you can charge. I can also charge this card with the DigiCash, and it works really good. I'm really happy. And the best thing is that, for example, you can transfer the money to any person that uses this kind of the same app. So you just need to know the phone number from that person, and that's all. You don't even need to have the bank accounts and anything. So that's really comfortable, I have to say.
So how do you pay at the service points? Do you scan a QR code or you enter?
Right, they have also the beacons. So you have two possibilities. The one possibility is that you can pay also with the NFC, or you can they can have like the bill printed out, and then there's a QR code. You just scan the QR code and everything is automatically inserted into an app. You just click pay, then you put your fingerprint or your PIN code, whatever you choose, and it works nicely. I have to say that there was a situation where the Face ID on the iPhone was crashing, and then if you would have the Face ID turned on and you wanted to pay with it, then it was crashing. But once you turn it off, you just put your PIN and it works.
Yeah, we have a similar thing in Poland. It's called Bleak, except what we do is we generate 6-digit codes, and you can, in the app of your banking provider, of your bank, and what you can do is you can give this 6-digit code to the person operating the payment terminal instead of your PIN. And then you get a confirmation on your phone. Do you want to pay this and that amount? You confirm it. You can even generate like a check for a given amount of money with a special code, and then you don't even need to touch your phone anymore. You just have the code with you. The person enters and the check is paid out. The problem is only that not all people operating these terminals are trained how to switch on the mode of this payment system. And sometimes you need to remember yourself which terminal goes where and how do you have, because with some terminals you have it pretty much exposed. And with some terminals there is a trick you need to do, there is some function button you need to press, and not every clerk at a shop knows how to turn it on. But it's also quite convenient, especially for online payments. You can also enter these codes, you can also transfer to another person via phone number. And I also heard this program of ours has joined the global initiative of MasterCard. Maybe DigiCash is in there as well. So maybe in the future this will be somehow cross-integrated between all these different payment systems in different countries. So yeah, this is convenient.
Well, I definitely have a feeling that, we are on the edge where lots of these new kinds of generation of the apps are being exposed to the massive public, and they do have accessibility functions built in. However, what I noticed, and I don't know how the situation is in Poland, for example, but what I noticed is that with these new generations of apps, for example, such as the online banking, this even the music apps that we mentioned before and stuff like that, people are not educated enough about how to use those kind of things. So I think that in the upcoming years, the organization for the blind and the various centers for the blind will need to spend their time in developing good tutorials for people by educating them how to use these kind of things. Because eventually, why I'm saying this is because, we as a people who are exposed to the tech industry and the accessibility stuff on the daily basis, for us, this is not a problem how to adapt and adjust with usage for certain products. We get adapted very quickly. But for the average user, this could be something that definitely will need some attention in, developing good and quality material for the education, because otherwise, people will stay at home and not be able to use it.
For sure. For our part, we can say we are doing this podcast, the Tiflo podcast that we mentioned, or the podcasts like here, like the EBU Access Cast, where we try to guide people step by step. That's how you do this, that's how you do that. Sometimes there are some recordings from outside, so we go to the shop, we do some payment, and we show people how this is done. Or navigation systems would also are demonstrated like that. All these tools for reading labels of bottles and packaging.
Yeah.
So this is, but for sure, the blindness organizations, I think that the training needs to be expanded beyond just like simple usage. This is how you use your computer. This is how you use Word, Excel, Firefox, Chrome. Also, how you can use your smartphone to, in a way, recover some parts of your sight, because this is basically what the smartphone is to us.
Absolutely,
like
absolutely, yeah.
Of your eyes.
Yeah.
So, and more and more of these solutions keep coming. So I think it's like an ever-developing market, which provides so much. Yeah, and speaking of independence, and also coming back a little bit to New Year, Christmas, and all the themes connected. New Year is this kind of time where you also think of some resolutions, what you would like to do better, what you would like to do different, what you would like to do that you haven't done yet and you always wanted to. So to give you some inspiration, Be My Eyes has released a list of top 10, or in their opinion, 10 good spots of museum and art experiences that are accessible and you can visit as a blind person or visually impaired person in general independently. And surprisingly, over half of those is in Europe. So this is really great. From different, because they are not always museums. Some of them are museums and not really like special museums. There are regular museums that also have inclusive features. There is one in Amsterdam.
Yeah, like tours for the blind and stuff.
Yeah. There is one in Amsterdam. There is one in London, the Queen Victoria Museum, which is historically quite an important site in the history of Great Britain, as it showed the society which is also a bit referring to what we just said about the new technology and training. It showed the society that they don't need to be afraid of the machines in the rise of industrial revolution, that the machines are not there to eliminate them, they're there to help them. And
The machines will kill us.
yeah, they are having this inclusive guided tours. In some cases there are actually special museums. In Athens, for example, there is the Museum of Ancient Culture, so culture of ancient Greece, which is specially adapted for the blind. So you can go and see all the sculptures, all the important landmarks of ancient culture and ancient history, which somehow probably is important to all of us here in Europe. So it's definitely the classic that maybe everyone should see, perhaps. Yes, I guess it's important. And also in Spain, in Madrid, there is the Museo Tiflológico, which is funded and created by ONCE, by the National Organization for Disabled People in Spain, and the member of EBU, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so they are quite a big player. They do a lot of activity for disabled people in Spain, not only blind, but mostly. And they also have this museum where you can learn a little bit about blind people and see some kind of tactile aids that used to aid blind people in the past. But also there is the showcasing of artworks created by blind artists. So if you're interested how this can work, you can go to Madrid and you can see how it actually goes with this kind of artwork. In Prague, there is the National Gallery of Prague offers some kind of VR experience, which is also quite interesting. You are equipped with a glove that helps you discovering some of the famous, I think they are sculptures that they are presenting there. So you can also use technology to enhance your experience. And then there are many more. The full list will, of course, appear in our show notes.
Yeah.
And if you know anything special from your area, feel free to tell us in the comments, so we know more and we can recommend more.
Yeah, the only thing what I can say is that what's even covered in that article from Be My Eyes is that you need to notify the museums before you come, most of them. So if you are planning to go somewhere, you need to notify the museum and get your date scheduled. When do you want to arrive? So you cannot just appear at the door and say, hey, I am here, I would like to see something, because they will say, well, we are not ready. And then don't complain that somebody is not offering you the services which you're requiring, because, well, people need to prepare for the tours and stuff. So yeah, it's just notification from us that if you're planning to visit such places, well, notify them in advance.
This is one thing, but another thing you can do is you can actually phone any museum that interests you and ask them if they have any enhancements for the blind or any experience with blind visitors. Because it might be that it's not really widely promoted or it's not listed anywhere, but they actually have some experience. They can either provide you with guidance, or they have some special materials, or they have some special visit plan for you. For instance, this way I found out from the German Museum of Football in Dortmund. So it's close by the Borussia Dortmund club. And it captures the whole history of how football developed as a sport discipline in Germany. And I was really curious when I was there if they would have some kind of blindness related or blindness specific guiding techniques or materials, and they said they actually have some experience, and I'm free to book with them in advance. A week in advance is enough, and then I can come and explore. I ended up not doing that actually, but I know for a reference and for the future that that's what you can do. Yeah. Also the House of European History in Brussels, if you're interested in how European Union and European history in general developed, also has some special devices for accompanying you, and some of the multimedia stands there are equipped with special devices. I think also the Vauban House in Luxembourg, from time to time they have some art exhibitions called Art for Everyone, something like that. And then some of the sculptures are exposed for blind people to touch. I took part in one of those by accident, actually. We just arrived with a group of friends, not expecting that, and a person who was our guide told us, hey, there is this exhibition for everyone now, would you like to take part? I can actually show you. and I could actually touch the sculptures, and it completely changed my perception. I could take part in the discussion of what the guide was showing us and contribute my impressions, my input. So definitely go and ask also somewhere where you are not sure or you haven't heard that there is accessibility, because they might have it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and staying still in the field of arts, there is a new TV series. Everyone likes TV series recently, especially when they are described, I guess, or if they are somehow related to blind people. And Apple has done something like that with their new Apple TV Plus service. One of their exclusives, one of the first shows they decided to go for, is centered around the world where everyone is blind. So we namely mean the See show. The show is literally called See, as in S-E-E, from seeing. And it actually evolves around the world where a virus has depopulated the whole human species, and there are only a couple million people left, most of them or all of them blind. And
yeah, and even if you can see, then this is a curse.
Yeah. Yes.
You're cursed if you can see, so
yeah. Although it's against the saying that is like, in the land of the blind, even one-eyed man is king. So they decided to take a different approach. And it's interesting because they decided to pick it as one of the first things to portray. And also it's interesting to find out, we will attach this article in the show notes, how they actually carried out the whole process of filming the show. Because they actually involved blind actors, and they did some consultancy with blindness organizations to portray blind people accurately. So
yeah,
there is a whole a great deal of work that they put into this. And it's really interesting how they, for instance, the whole scripts, all the scripts for the actors were sent out electronically. The actors were pointed to certain things by sound, so listen in for the sound of the fountain and turn to this direction when they were taught how to move around. And also it's interesting to see how they developed whole scenes of fighting, of combat between blind people. And they actually said that the difference is that a sighted fighter in a combat, he will actually anticipate what's going to happen by visual cues. And the blind person, they will just go by sound, or they will just try to, already having some experience, they will try to use their experience to carry out a combat and to predict the next moves of the opponent. So it's definitely interesting how they carried it all out. And I can say, because when I was still at school, we had a sort of school theater. And we were mostly blind actors. And it was really interesting. Our teacher who conducted the whole club, she had to teach us how to move around the scene independently. So we had to learn the layout of the whole stage. Mm-hmm. And we were performing in different theaters, so it wasn't always the same place. So we had to arrive sometime in advance, we had to walk around the stage, and we had to somehow work in tandem with our sighted colleagues to get the guidance and to learn each other in the way. And also where the audience is sitting, so we face them and so on. When we turn around, we should be aware of our surroundings. So it's definitely a great deal of work, even for such a simple piece that we were staging, which happens basically on a stage which is limited in space. But when you have to film an actual show with different settings, this is definitely a great deal of work. So we encourage you to read the article that we're going to provide in the show notes. And yeah, it's great that Apple decided to go for such a plot for one of their exclusive services.
Yeah, regarding the See show, I didn't have the chance, basically no time to watch it yet, but maybe over the Christmas, maybe I will have the chance of catching up what's going on. I know that there was recently the episode of the Blind Bargains podcast as well, and they covered the topic of See TV series quite extensively, so yeah, we can also put that in the show notes.
Okay.
As a link.
Yeah, and if you haven't watched it, go and watch it.
Give us a comment. How did you like it?
Yeah, definitely. They're going to have fierce competition now over Christmas because Star Wars is coming out, and there is this Mandalorian, the new Star Wars-based TV series, and The Witcher is also out. So the competition is high, but nevertheless, maybe somebody will find some time for See.
Yeah.
And before we conclude the show, as we said, there will be a demonstration by Mario of the new Android Wear OS watch that he bought, but also Tanya, who is not with us today. Get better soon, Tanya. Greetings to you. She is going to interview Antoine Faubet of EBU, who will tell us something about the campaign that EBU is carrying out in regards to the Marrakesh Treaty and the European Accessibility Act, and the accessibility of the publishing industry in general. So we could also do a little bit of intro for that and tell you a bit what it's all about. The background is that while you probably have in each of your countries a library for the blind, you can only get these books that were produced within that library. And if you would like to obtain some books from other countries in other languages, it's really difficult. It's not really straightforward. Some libraries have established links to other libraries for the blind in other countries, but it's not a common practice. For instance, the Polish library for the blind doesn't give me access to external libraries as far as I know. And the Marrakesh Treaty was developed to connect all these libraries to each other and to allow for fluid exchange of accessible books that are produced across different libraries. So if I'm here in Poland, I was studying English at some point and I needed some book for my research, which was only available in, let's say, Bookshare in the States.
Yeah.
Now it's really difficult to get it, but if the Marrakesh Treaty was in force back then, I could totally independently request this book from Bookshare and it could be delivered to me via my library in Poland. So that's what the Marrakesh Treaty is about. And also the European Accessibility Act on its side includes some provisions for the publishing industry that first of all the reading software and devices for ebooks are accessible. So if you get an ebook reader that is manufactured or sold in Europe, or there is your favorite bookshop that has a piece of software that they use for accessing their books that you bought from them, these all need to be accessible. You should be able to use them with your screen reader or some screen reading technology that the device will come with. And also the ebooks that are produced and sold should be accessible, so they should contain all the accessibility standards defined in the EPUB free standard, and yeah, you should be able to just buy them, grab them and read them. With all the alternative descriptions for pictures in place, all the layouts for tables and everything else that applies. And while this is all nice legislation and it's technically in force, actually there is still a long way to go when it comes to the member states and the institutions fulfilling their part in making this a reality. There is the support, of course, from World Blind Union, from World Intellectual Property Organization, but there are some limitations, and the biggest problem is of course with money. So the publishers and the publishing industry, it's difficult to agree how the authors and the publishers will be compensated for this free exchange of books, because usually you pay some royalties to them for their work and for their operation and so on, and this will not happen if you just get these books accessibly, so like from a library, just like that. So there need to be some agreements how this is going to be solved, and even the countries that ratified still are trying to find some ways around it, and sometimes it backfires on us as consumers, because for instance in some countries the provision is that the books should come with certain compensation fee that is paid back to the author or to the publisher, which is popularly called the accessibility tax. So you should actually pay more for the book because it's accessible and because it's given to you, which is not fair. And some countries apply it for all the books, some countries just for audiobooks. But nevertheless, it shouldn't be like that. And also on the other hand, some countries are thinking of providing authorized lists of entities who are entitled to receive these books and distribute them, and you need to put yourself on that list or request to be added, which also makes the process really bureaucratic.
Yeah, and I don't think this is also a violation of freedom, man. Yeah. Why do I have to be a member of some organization if I don't want to?
Yeah.
That's also a thing.
By all means. So there are these problems, and the EBU is of course campaigning to solve them, both on the side of the Marrakesh Treaty and the EAA, and in the interview with Antoine and Tanya will definitely put some more light on the matter, and we will find out what EBU is up to as far as the books that we read are concerned. So, yeah.
Thank you for a very extensive introduction, Mr. Marsarczyk.
Anytime.
It was a very well written doctor dissertation. We liked it a lot.
I really hope I didn't steal too much content from our spokespeople who will have the interview afterwards. Well,
yeah.
Then
but
you hear it from them.
Everything what Pavel said is, that's how it is. So
yeah,
we needed to say it.
Indeed. So that's it when it comes to our news items. So we will, of course, leave you with Mario and Tanya with their demo and the interview. But before we go, we at EBU Access Cast would like to wish you all the best, Merry Happy Christmas.
Ho, ho, ho.
Indeed. Many nice gadgets under your Christmas tree, if that's what you're into. Many moments that you share with those you care about, if that's what you're going to do. And at any rate, see you again on the flip side of 2020, the 220s meet. And we'll definitely see some pretty exciting innovation. You can also tell us in the comments if you expect anything big to happen in 2020 or if you have some predictions for what's going to happen or what you hope will happen in accessibility. So Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and take care until the next episode. See you in 2020. Bye-bye.
See you.
All the best. See you. Cheers.
Persons who are blind, visually impaired, or otherwise print disabled continue to face barriers in accessing the books or other printed materials, which are protected by copyright and other related rights. But the accessibility of books is becoming more important in the publishing industry, thanks to the progress of the digital reading technologies, but also thanks to the new legal framework in Europe. In this context of the European Blind Union campaign Right to Read, we have on the podcast Antoine Faube. Hello, Antoine.
Hello, Tanya.
Well, thank you for participating on our podcast. So I have plenty of questions for you regarding the accessibility of books, Marrakesh Treaty, and also European Accessibility Act. What is the Marrakesh Treaty?
The Marrakesh Treaty is a World Intellectual Property Organization treaty. In fact, the first intellectual property treaty benefiting the public interest rather than the interests of rights holders. In fact, copyright law currently has the effect of preventing the circulation of books across borders. The treaty provides for copyright exemptions in the laws of state parties to enable authorized entities to share their accessible book collections with entities and with blind, low vision, and print disabled persons in other countries. The treaty will considerably improve access to copyright protected works published in accessible format all over the world and help fight what we have called in the campaign book famine.
Does the Marrakesh Treaty apply to educational and leisure materials?
Yes, it does, without distinction.
What are the accessible copies?
Well, copies in accessible format for blind and partially sighted persons include, for example, Braille, large print, adapted ebooks, audiobooks, DAISY format books, and radio broadcasts. These formats are usually produced by on an ad hoc basis by specialist organizations through a transformation of a non-accessible book.
What are the EU legal obligations in regards to the Marrakesh Treaty?
Well, first of all, why the EU? Because the EU is competent in commercial, in trade negotiations with third countries and internationally. So the EU is actually committing its currently 28 member states toward the rest of the world, the other state parties in the Marrakesh Treaty. And the European Union, through the Commission as guardian of EU law, also has a role of ensuring that what are now common EU rules are respected within the EU. This is reflected by the fact that there are two EU legal instruments. One is a regulation that governs the implementation of the treaty between EU member states and non-member states, and a directive that governs the internal market aspects. I would just like to point out that the EU, of course, has a big dimension in the context of the Marrakesh Treaty, since along with the United States, it is the geographical area where the majority of accessible formats exist in major languages.
Who can provide the accessible copy to the beneficiary from other European countries?
Precisely, these are the authorized entities I mentioned before. That is, any organization or institution that has among its competences the service of visually impaired people. Usually these are libraries and blind persons organizations. However, there are wide differences between countries in the approach to authorized entities, and the EBU is currently envisaging a mapping exercise.
And what about if the book is not prepared yet in the accessible copy? Can the beneficiary request the authorized authority to create the accessible copy of the specific book?
Standing to the Marrakesh Treaty, the answer is no, that's not what the treaty is about. The treaty is about access to existing accessible format books and circulation of these works. Instead, creating born accessible books is more within the scope of the European Accessibility Act. However, this being said, certainly there will be peer pressure among authorized entities from different countries, as they see that maybe in other countries there are better practices, more wider collections of accessible format books that would lead, through example, other countries to follow the same route. But at least the Marrakesh Treaty does not create an obligation to make accessible copies where these do not exist yet.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So after talking about the Marrakesh Treaty, I would like to focus now on the other aspect, on the European Directive on Accessibility Requirements for Products and Services, the so-called European Accessibility Act that was approved by European institutions in April 2019 and requests publishers to produce digital publications in the accessible format. So what does this mean, and what this brings in addition to the Marrakesh Treaty?
Well, somehow you've said it already, but let me start by saying that the European Accessibility Act has a very wide name, and in fact, in practice, it's been criticized by the EBU for that. It largely focuses on the virtual world. So unfortunately, on the positive side, the Accessibility Act creates an obligation in the near future to produce books that are accessible by design, not adapted for the specific needs of visually impaired persons, but simply that exist from the start as accessible publications. But this concerns only electronic books and not hard copy works. So it is a positive step, but it is limited. But on the other hand, it is looking at the future somehow, whereas the Marrakesh Treaty is considering adapted works, the Accessibility Act has the advantage of considering for the future, and only as far, unfortunately, as ebooks are concerned, the idea that books should be produced as accessible works for everybody from the start.
You mentioned before that the accessible copies in the context of Marrakesh Treaty will be distributed by authorized authorities, but how the accessible ebooks will be distributed in the context of the European Accessibility Act?
You're right to point that out, because this is another aspect of the European Accessibility Act that makes it interesting as far as ebooks are concerned. Ebooks will have to be born accessible and distributed through the ordinary channel, including for visually impaired readers. So they will not have to go through specially adapted channels to get these accessible format ebooks. It will be through the ordinary channels. So the distributional channel will need to be suited to the purchase of ebooks. And this is because the European Accessibility Act in general is about an obligation to make products and services accessible in general. And the sale of a book is a service, and it should be as accessible as the electronic book will have to be.
Okay. In which format the accessible ebooks will be available?
I'm not really comfortable to answer this question as I'm not into a technical side myself, but I guess EPUB or PDF will be the usual formats.
Are the special volumes like comics or children books or art books also covered by this directive?
The directive does not make a distinction that I know of. I'm not 100% sure. I should check, but I don't recall that there is such a distinction. Although I see why you raise that question, because obviously these types of books raise special challenges when it comes to accessibility.
Yes. Will there be or are there any special standards or guidelines that publishers can use and to follow in preparing the accessible ebooks?
Well, again, as head of campaigning at EBU, I am not competent to go on the technical side, but I know some standards exist like EPUB Accessibility 1.0 guidelines.
To add markups and to add alternative text, to respect the reading order. So all good practices for accessibility should be respected in the accessible ebook format. Who can assess the accessibility of the publication? And are there any specific measures that are foreseen by the European Commission on assessing the publications?
Well, we don't really know yet about the Commission's intentions. What I can tell you is this. The European Accessibility Act's annex merely indicates accessibility results to be achieved, without indicating the means to achieve these results, in particular for ebooks. We think the standardization route should be avoided as excessively long and complex, and the preference should go for adoption by the Commission of European technical specifications based on existing and commonly approved industry standards. This is likely to be the Commission's preferred route as well.
Okay.
EPUB 3 is the most relevant standard, but it is not born accessible. ISO is currently addressing how to encode accessibility into EPUB 3, and there should be an ISO standard next year that we should be looking at. We should also keep the door open to other solutions, for instance, the use of PDF or HTML-based formats by publishers. We will see what we can propose to the Commission in terms of accessibility standards for ebooks, but eventually it will be for the industry to provide the metadata to inform about the accessibility features of the ebooks. And single publishers will have to inform consumers about possible partial inaccessibility in exceptional cases, as contemplated in the European Accessibility Act, by the way.
Will there be a catalog of commercially accessible publications that are available on the market?
Again, the reply here is not in the European Accessibility Act, but it makes sense that there ought to be, in each country, a place where the information is centralized and to be shared with authorized entities. In a joint meeting we had with the Federation of European Publishers, it was suggested that this be, at least before something EU-wide can be envisaged, through the existing national overall catalogs of commercial publications. These catalogs present the advantage of daily updating and full details of typology. And they also lend themselves to the production of statistics, in turn allowing to build peer pressure among publishers.
What are the EBU plans for the future in regards to the Marrakesh Treaty and also in regards to the European Accessibility Act?
Well, in both cases, I mean, for the Marrakesh Treaty as for the European Accessibility Act, we will be monitoring implementation of the directives within the European Union. And as far as the Marrakesh Treaty is concerned, we also have to think about wider Europe, looking beyond the EU, I mean. Currently, there are only 3 countries that have signed the Marrakesh Treaty, Russia, Switzerland, and Moldova. And only 2 of these, Russia and Moldova, have ratified. So we need more countries on board. Also, I mentioned contacts with the Federation of European Publishers. We will pursue these contacts to specifically on how to facilitate work towards making ebooks accessible by design. And together with FEP, we mean to have contacts with ADALB, namely to make its InDesign tool more accessible. Because I remind you that the Marrakesh Treaty is not only about books, it's about works in general. We say books to make it easy, but it's actually any print work.
Yes, in fact. Okay, thank you very much for your participation.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for your interest, Tanya.
Demo time for a demonstration.
And now it's time for the demo for the EBU Access Cast. This time for you, I have a newest smartwatch from the company that's called Fossil, and this model of the watch is called Fossil Gen 5. Now Gen 5 stands for Generation 5, obviously. This is the Android Wear watch, so it's based on the Android system and it uses Wear OS as the operating system. The watch is a round shape and it's made in the stainless steel chassis. It comes with a different variety of the watch straps, which are 22 millimeters, so you can choose when you are purchasing the watch whether you want a metal band or a silicone band, or you can even choose the leather band for the watch. The size of the watch is 44 millimeters, and this is unfortunately the only downside which I see for the watch, because it comes only in one size. Usually when you're buying smartwatches such as, for example, Apple Watch or various Samsung watches, which are also accessible for us, they come in 2 different sizes, so you can choose between 44 millimeters and 40 millimeters, but unfortunately the Fossil Gen 5 comes only in 44 millimeters. So though they do have a model for girls, it's absolutely identical as the model for males. The only thing what's different are the colors. So why this watch is so cool for us as a blind and visually impaired people? Well, because it has the built-in accessibility features. Especially it has a built-in speaker, which was not the case always with the Android Wear devices and smartwatches. However, this watch comes with a built-in speaker, which sounds really good, and you will be hearing that in a very short time. It has a built-in Google Assistant, and you can do all the stuff that you want to do on your smart device, such as receiving notifications, reading notifications, viewing your emails, social media. You can even use it with your GPS if you want, so you don't need to have it on your phone. It works with the Google Maps. You can measure the temperature with it. Also, you can customize the watch, basically, so you can use different applications from the Play Store, which you can install directly on the watch. And everything speaks for us. There is a talkback built in on the watch. It comes already with the watch. And once you get everything going, everything works as it should. The weight of the watch is about 100 grams, so it's not the lightest thing in the world. Apple watches are lighter, but okay, if you're a guy and you want to purchase a watch, it's still gonna be quite light on your hand. I have another watch from another company, which is not a smartwatch, but it's a customizable product for the blind. It's the Acoustica watch that we demoed a long time ago in our podcast. And that watch is heavier than the Fossil Gen 5. So before we explore the features of the watch in our short demo, I just would like to make a really important announcement for all the people that would like to purchase this watch. And eventually, when I was researching which watch I will get for myself as a smart gadget, I found out that the case which happened to me is not only happening to me, but to many people which are purchasing the smart devices. What's happening? So the thing is that when you go to the help page about the accessibility services for the smartwatches, they're saying, or basically Google is saying, that if you want to run TalkBack on your device for the first time, what you need to do is you need to power up the watch, then put your 2 fingers on the screen, hold it for a few seconds, and TalkBack should come up speaking. When I powered my watch for the first time, I got the message that my TalkBack will be starting, but eventually, after holding up the fingers on for a few more seconds, it didn't happen. And later I found out why. The thing is that you really need to have sighted assistance in order to set up the watch properly at the beginning for the first time, because there's a huge system update which needs to be downloaded and installed on the watch. Before that, the watch will not talk properly, or it will not talk at all, and that's because there are some audio conflicts between the screen reader and the audio device that's installed on the phone, so they're crashing with each other, and you can hear something spoken, but it's not consistent. So please, when you're buying the watch, after you buy it, don't think it's broken. You just have to update everything, and it does take time. The update takes about more than an hour, and you might want to keep your watch on the charger when you're doing it. Otherwise, you'll drain your battery very quickly. And when you do that, you will have to continue updating the watch. Basically, it will continue to update itself once you start it to charge. But it will take much longer process. And I remember when I was updating my watch, it took me, few hours to do it because it was turning on and off, because I didn't know that it will drain my battery. So yeah, but okay, the good thing about this software update is that once everything downloads and installs, the watch will restart and it will come up talking, and everything will work as it should be. So the watch also comes with a small magnetic charger, which you can plug into your computer or any kind of chargers, such as your charger for the phone. And the charging process takes a little bit than an hour from completely drained battery to the 100%, which is great. It doesn't take a long time. And yeah, it's absolutely nice device. It works very good, as you will see for the moment. Another thing which I would like to point out when setting up the accessibility is the fact that if you need to use a screen reader, aka TalkBack, on your watch, you need to have, for the beginning, your watch set to the US English. And that's a must. That's really what you have to do, because if you don't do that, the watch will not talk at all, because it needs additional access to the internet to download the appropriate files for particular language, and that might get confusing. But if you're setting your device, you need to put the watch to the US English and then change the options later. Alright, so the watch, I have it in my hand. It talks right now through the Google text-to-speech engine, and it has the 3 buttons. The center button is the rotating crown, which can be rotated, well, obviously left and right, and it can also be pressed. And there are 2 additional buttons on the sides, which act as the volume buttons when you have TalkBack enabled. But if you don't have TalkBack enabled and you have some vision left, then you can dedicate these buttons for the shortcuts for using different apps, such as, let's say, Google Fit, which is monitoring your fitness activities, or for the Google Pay as well, because the watch has NFC function built in. So you can, if you in your country you have a Google Pay, you can use it very comfortably with this watch. So when the TalkBack is running, the crown can be used for going to the home screen, bringing up the launcher with the apps, and you can also use the crown to scroll through the lists if you don't want to swipe all the time on your screen. Well, because obviously the screen is small. It's a 1.3 inch screen, so if you don't want to scroll all the time on the screen and swipe, then you can use this crown to do that. Okay, so let's see, what do we have here? I set up for the speech rate to a normal speed, so everybody will be able to understand it. So let's see what's happening. When I press the crown, we should get the time notification. 1811. Yes, it's 1811, thank you. So now if I just explore my screen, 1,407 steps. I can see how many steps did I make. Battery 38%. I can see how much battery I have left. The 17th of December. And I can see what's the date today. 1811. 3 unread notifications. And I hear also that I have 3 unread notifications. So I can go between like the settings, notifications, and apps and so on with the crown, rotating crown, or I can use my fingers on the screen to go left, right, up and down to explore different parts of the screen, let's say. But okay, if I want to be faster, so I will show you what's happening. I will just turn the crown. So we are now on the settings. Notification. Gmail 13 minutes. Pavel Masarchik, links and keywords in list. And we are on my notifications. Double tap to expand. Standard music code. Sound like cardiogram 708. Monitoring active. Heart rate checked every 5 minutes. All right. Double tap to expand. Double tap and hold to show settings. So you could see that I have my notifications, and if I want to go back directly on my watch face, which is kind of my home screen, I could just press again the crown. Watch face, 1813, 3 unread notifications. To go on the watch face. 13, out of list. There is also, as you could hear, there is also a heart rate sensor, so it monitors your heart rate, which is really useful. But okay, let's explore for example, the settings screen, because we could see that notifications are working. Let's explore the settings. Quick settings. Open settings. Sounds and alarms unmuted. We have sounds and alarms unmuted. Smart battery saver. We have
Double tap to toggle.
also smart battery saver.
Open Find My Phone. Double tap to activate.
Open Find My Phone. This is a cool feature of this watch because if you have your phone somewhere and you don't know where it is in house, you can open that and then your phone will ring somewhere, indicating you that you have to find it.
Theater mode. Double tap to toggle.
There's a theater mode. Basically, when you're on the theater, you use it to silence up all the notifications and stuff.
Do not disturb off.
There's also Do Not Disturb.
Airplane mode off. Double tap to toggle.
There's airplane.
Wi-Fi 2 bars.
And also notification about my Wi-Fi, which is great because I see how many bars I have.
Open settings.
And we are
Double tap to activate.
back again on the settings. Let's see what do we have.
Settings. Settings. Heading. In list 12 items.
So
Display.
we have a display,
Sound.
sound,
Apps and notifications.
apps and
Double
notifications,
tap to activate. Gestures.
gestures,
Double tap. Connectivity. Double
connectivity.
tap to activate.
So here we are setting Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, all the stuff that we need for the connectivity between the phone.
Accessibility.
Whoa, there is accessibility. Okay. Let's check out what we have here.
Accessibility. Accessibility. Heading. In list 5 items. Off switch magnification gestures. Double tap to activate.
So we have magnification gestures. Currently on my phone, on my watch, this is set to off because I don't need them.
Text to speech output.
Text to
Double
speech
tap
output.
To activate.
Here we can select which TTS engine do we want to use.
On switch talkback experimental. Double tap to activate.
So on, we hear that TalkBack is in the experimental phase. This is because this is a Wear OS, and yeah, Google sometimes have a tendency of testing their stuff for quite a long time. So don't get afraid if you hear that TalkBack is in the experimental phase. It works.
On switch power button and call. Double
Uh-huh.
tap to activate.
It says switch power, and that's on. Switch power and call. Well, what does that mean? That means that this watch can be also used for the phone calls. Yes, you can call and receive calls on the watch, and I have to say it works really well. I was really surprised.
Off magnification gestures.
And
On switch talkback experimental. On switch power button and call.
switch button
Double tap to activate.
and call, that's the last option that we have in the accessibility. So if I just want to go back to the previous screen of the settings, I will just do 2-finger swipe to the right.
On switch talk. On switch talk. Settings.
And I'm back on the settings.
General. Double tap to activate.
There's general option of the settings,
Personalization.
personalization,
Double tap. Storage.
storage,
System.
system.
Double tap to activate.
So here we are setting up all the stuff for the system. We can check out if we have new updates for the Wear OS, and we can set up all the different things for the watch. You can do what you can do once you get comfortable with the watch, and that's the huge advantage of the Wear OS platform, is that if you find the application which you really like, but the version of the application is not compatible with the Wear OS, which is the operating system for the watches, you can sideload the application in the watch. So when you sideload the application into the watch, that means that you can do a little hacking with the tool called ADB Shell. These are the set of tools for Android maintenance. And then when you connect the phone via ADB Shell, and when you install all the drivers and stuff, you can sideload the apps into the watch and install them. I installed, for example, a few of the apps that way into this watch. So, for example, I can change now between different TTS engines. So if I don't want to use the Google TTS, I can use something else and switch, for example, to the Eloquence or eSpeak, which I also have installed. Alright, let's go back to the home screen again. 1819. And let's explore the launcher to see which apps comes on the watch print. In order to do that, I will have to press the crown again.
Launcher. Phone. Recent. In list 34 items. Home. Messenger. Phone. Recent.
Oh, there is a phone app.
Messenger. Recent.
There's a messenger which I installed.
Settings. Recent.
Settings.
Agenda.
Then we have agenda. Alarm. Cardiogram, which is measuring your heart rate. There are contacts. There's the Easy Voice Recorder, which is the application for recording the audio. And yes, I will show you the quality of the microphone and the recording later. There's the eSpeak, which I installed. Find my phone. Fit, this is a Google Fit. Fit free. Fit workout, these are like fitness apps. There's a flashlight for the watch. So if somebody has some sight and there's a dark, you can use that as well. There's a Fossil app, which unfortunately at this moment is not working the best with the screen readers, but Fossil as a company has a dedicated team to the working on the accessibility, so you can send them an email and contact them if you find that something is inaccessible. There are maps, messages, Nike Run Club, phone, as we already saw it, play music, Play Store, there are reminders, settings. I also installed Shazam and a smart audiobook player for playing audiobooks. This doesn't come by default, I installed it. There's a Spotify, stopwatch, timer, also the possibility of using Google Translate, and Uber, which I also installed on the watch. And the last one, which I have on the watch, is the weather app, so I can also check the weather. Alright, so this was a short demo of the watch. I just wanted to show you how it works. The only thing which we will do shortly now is I'm going to bring up the Easy Voice Recorder.
Launcher, phone, messenger, cardiogram, double tap to active contact, fit free, flashlight, fossil,
Alright.
fit workout, fit, find my EPI, eSpeak, Easy Voice Recorder.
Easy Voice Recorder, it's here. I will launch it.
Easy Voice Recorder, navigation drawer, record.
And I will press record. So now I'm recording the stuff a little bit on the watch, and we will adjust the recording later and insert it in our demo, but this is just to show the listeners that the microphone on the watch is able to pick up everything. And yeah, you can use it for recording your voice memos, record your meetings if you're somewhere, lectures, whatever you want to do. and then it syncs up with your phone later, and you can share that with the other people if you want, or you can transfer that to the cloud and use it from there if you want. So now we are going to stop the recording.
1820. Stop button.
And
Double
I will
tap to
click on the
activate.
stop button.
Easy voice recorder. Save. Easy voice recorder.
And
Navigation drawer.
the application informed me that the file has been saved, and it's automatically saved on my phone, so I can then later explore it on my phone and transfer it to my PC or my cloud. Alright, so thank you very much for listening. This was a short but I hope informative demo about the Fossil Gen 5. If by accident I missed something, feel free to drop us a question and I will be glad to answer. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening. This has been EBU Access Cast.